Good morning to members of the media across the region and to those following us across the social media platforms. I'm Keith Goddard, the Communications and Public Relations Specialist with CDEMA. This morning, we've called this press briefing to update the region on the impact of Hurricane Beryl on the participating states and on CDEMA's coordination and response efforts on this occasion. I'm joined by the Executive Director, Ms. Elizabeth Riley, who will provide you with an update, after which we will take questions from the media. At this time, Ms. Riley.
Thank you very much, Keith, and good morning to members of the media across the region and to all others who are joining us via our social media platforms. I want to start by expressing CDEMA's solidarity with the government and the people of the CDEMA participating states who have been severely impacted by Hurricane Beryl, and also to share that our thoughts and prayers are with the CDEMA states which are currently under threat, specifically Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and of course Haiti and potentially Belize. So to give a bit of a background, what is now a Category 4 Hurricane Beryl, which is headed for Jamaica, started as a tropical disturbance last Saturday on June the 28th and quickly developed into a major hurricane by Saturday night and into Monday morning. Initially, there was a threat to the participating states of Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 6 of the CDEMA participating states. As at July 2, yesterday evening, we can confirm that there has been some impact in Barbados, St. Lucia, minimal impacts for Dominica, but it is very clear that it was the Grenadines of St. Vincent, particularly Canouan, Meru, and Union Island, as well as the Grenadines of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, which bore the brunt of Hurricane Beryl. Beryl, as you know, following its traversing of the Eastern Caribbean chain, intensified to a Category 5 hurricane, and at this time it is forecast to impact Jamaica. In fact, it is impacting Jamaica at this time as a Category 4 system with some potential impact on the southern coast of Haiti and potentially later today in the Cayman Islands as well. So I want to provide you with information on the country status, and I must emphasize that assessments in all participating states are still ongoing, so this is very much an initial, very preliminary picture of what has happened. With respect to Barbados, we are aware that initial damage reports include over 40 homes being damaged, with numbers expected to rise as the damage assessment continues. We have also confirmed significant damage to the fishing sector, as well as coastal infrastructure, particularly along the south coast of the island. It is reported that over 200 boats were damaged, and there were partial road obstructions due to debris as well as fallen trees. The damage assessments, of course, will give us a full understanding of the extent of the impact and will also guide recovery. With respect to St. Lucia, significant damage was experienced in the southern section of St. Lucia, specifically in the area of Soufriere. And St. Lucia has mobilized, as Barbados, its internal resources to treat the impact so far. With respect to Tobago, there were reports of damage across the Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago, reports of power outages as well as water disruption on Tobago, and temporary blocked roadways on both islands. Dominica indicated that there was minimal damage. So at this time, we, of course, are awaiting the details of the damage assessment from those participating states. So let us look more specifically at St. Vincent and the Grenadines at the preliminary assessments. And I will look at these island by island. So with respect to Canouan, which has a total population of approximately 12,600 persons, we know that 100% of that population was affected. There is an estimated 90% of the houses that were damaged, either extensively or destroyed. The police station in Charlestown is also known to have lost its roof. In terms of access, the runway has been cleared, and we've confirmed through an aerial recce that the surface of that runway is intact and it is usable. With respect to Union Island, which has a total population of 3,000, the full population was also affected by BERYL. There's been extensive damage to the island. An estimated 98% of the buildings, including houses, the airport building, have been badly damaged or destroyed. The control tower of the airport was also destroyed, and the hospital roof was also destroyed. The power plant at building on Union Island has received significant damage, and approximately 30% of the solar photovoltaic panels at the solar farm have also been damaged or destroyed. We are aware through indications from the Honorable Prime Minister that facility is being made for those persons who wish to do so to be evacuated using the fast ferry. With respect to Meru, the total population of approximately 300 persons was also affected. 90% of the housing stock and buildings have been damaged or destroyed. Palm Island, the resort on Palm Island has been significantly damaged, and the desalination plant has also been significantly damaged. Beckway has reported fared somewhat better. Initial estimates are about 10% of the houses and buildings suffering roof damage. We've confirmed that the airport buildings and runway are still very much usable. And with respect to Mustique, the airport also is in good condition, as well as the jetty, which has suffered very minimal damage. So those islands appear to have fared much better. With respect to Petite Martinique, there's an estimated 80% of the houses and buildings on that island which were extensively damaged or destroyed. So, colleagues, the overall picture with respect to the Grenadine Islands is quite significant, severe, and of course the focus at this time is on the population, which has been significantly impacted. They're also exposed, so there are considerations related to urgent shelter for those persons. With respect to Grenada, there have been reports of damage in the north of Grenada that is being assessed. Carriacou, one of the Grenadine Islands with a population of approximately 6,081, the total population has also been affected. So shelter is a significant consideration here as well. Initial reports are that the majority of the homes and buildings on that island have been extensively damaged. The majority of the persons who have been affected are currently sheltering in place with temporary arrangements. The Emergency Operations Center on that island was activated yesterday with some additional reinforcement from mainland Grenada, and the coordination operations have commenced. The government of Grenada is also mobilizing food for distribution, and initial damage assessment has been initiated on that island. Communication also significantly compromised. With respect to Petite Martinique, with a population of estimated 900 persons, the full population has also been affected. The majority of the homes and buildings on that island were also extensively damaged or destroyed. The majority of the population on island is also sheltering in place with temporary arrangements. The government is mobilizing food for distribution, and we do have reports of persons in shelter in Petit Martinique, but those numbers are being confirmed. So we have an initial picture, but it is certainly sufficient to allow us to focus the response efforts, even as we await the final damage assessment indications. So what has been the response through the regional response mechanism, which is coordinated by CDEMA? The CDEMA coordinating unit activated the regional coordination plan at 5 a.m. on the 29th of June. Our regional coordination center was activated on the 30th of June to address the response. There was an emergency meeting of the heads of government of CARICOM yesterday on the 2nd of July to discuss and make provision for how the community will be supporting its neighbors who've been impacted. And I want to express my thanks to the heads of government of the community for their support. With respect to regional coordination, CDEMA has convened to date 4 meetings of the Caribbean Development Partner Group, which pulls together our participating states, CARICOM regional institutions, as well as UN organizations and other private sector, non-governmental, as well as civil society organizations to support a coordinated response. I accompanied Ms. Michelle Forbes, the Director of the National Emergency Management Organization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, NEMO, on an aerial reconnaissance of St. Vincent and its Grenadines, as well as the Grenadines of Grenada yesterday. This mission was facilitated by the Regional Security System, and we want to thank the RSS for its continued support. The mission did provide a comprehensive view of the status with respect to the housing as well as buildings on islands and critical facilities, and allowing us to really prioritize how we would task the regional response teams which would be supporting, and I'll say a little bit more about that shortly. We have activated within the Regional Coordination Center a number of thematic groups, including the Relief and Logistics thematic group. And this group, co-chaired by CDEMA and the World Food Programme, are in the process of establishing a relief transshipment hub at Shed 1 of the Barbados port. A site visit was conducted, and we expect to commence those operations later today. We want to thank the World Food Programme for activating their arrangements with Massey Distribution, and we will be undertaking the packaging of food items to be distributed to families containing ready-to-eat foods given the situation on the ground, and both St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada will benefit from this. We also want to thank the operators who have indicated a pledge of support to the hub, which include the Barbados Red Cross, the Rotary International, as well as the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme. We want to thank them for their support. With respect to emergency telecommunications, we have deployed a CARICOM emergency telecommunications team to St. Vincent and the Grenadines with telecommunications supplies, which include mobile communication systems comprising laptops, power supplies, Starlink satellite internet service, as well as solar power generators so that these can function independently. And a similar deployment will be made to Grenada to support its Grenadines. A rapid needs assessment team was deployed to St. Vincent and the Grenadines yesterday, and this was facilitated via the Guyana Defense Force Air Wing, and we want to express thanks to them and also to the Regional Security System for facilitation of that movement. The members of that rapid needs assessment team are very diverse, and I will try to highlight as I go through the various entities providing support in just a short while. We have also had significant support by the participating states of the CDEMA system, and we want to thank the national disaster coordinators of all of our participating states for rallying around their colleagues at this time. Antigua and Barbuda, in particular, has provided coordination of support out of Antigua. They have also provided a suite of relief items, ice, water, human resources in the form of search and rescue and security contingents, supporting the RSS efforts in that regard. They've supported the CARICOM disaster relief unit team, as well as other response personnel. The government of Barbados has facilitated through the access to the Bridgetown port for the purposes of the transshipment hub, and also provided human resources to the Rapid Needs Assessment Team. We want to thank the Coastal Zone Management Unit in that regard. The government of Guyana, in addition to providing 2 flights yesterday with relief items, provided air transport for the relief teams, 500 cots, 500 tarpaulins, as well as a quantity of plastic sheeting and medical support are also pledged, and arrangements are being made for the delivery of those items. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis has also provided relief items, supported the security contingent, the CARICOM Disaster Relief Unit membership, and have also offered additional technical support personnel. Trinidad and Tobago, the sub-regional focal point for the southern region of CDEMA, has dispatched relief items to the impacted states yesterday. We also have members from Trinidad and Tobago being deployed to support the Emergency Operations Center efforts in Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and they're scheduled to arrive in those islands today. And we also have had the support of the Air Guard of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force undertaking a number of actions, including supporting aerial reconnaissance and the movement of personnel, and we want to thank them in that regard. 2 fast ferries have also been made available by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to support the transport of personnel and relief items. So as you can see, colleagues, the region has really been rallying, and we want to thank them. We also know that other CDEMA participating states are undertaking actions at this time to support our neighbors, and as that information comes to hand, we will ensure that it's also shared with the public. We do have a number of regional institutions as well supporting the efforts. The Caribbean Broadcasting Union supporting our Rapid Needs Assessment Team to ensure that we can get the story of what is happening with the persons in those territories available to you. The Caribbean Development Bank, which is providing personnel to support the Rapid Needs Assessment Team, as well as financial support to the Regional Response Mechanism deployments. The Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology has kept us fully abreast with respect to the scientific analysis as the tropical cyclone has evolved, and supported impact-based forecasting, informing the readiness actions in our states. CARICOM Impacts has been supporting on the security front. The CARICOM Private Sector Organization, CPSO, has been mobilizing efforts, particularly relief supplies out of Trinidad and Tobago. The Caribbean Public Health Agency, which has provided support to the Rapid Needs Assessment Team, as well as CAWASA, which is the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Organization. We also have a number of United Nations organizations supporting our efforts, and there are many of these. The Food and Agriculture Organization is supporting. The International Organization for Migration has been supporting us here and leading the thematic group looking at shelter solutions for those persons who have been displaced. We have the Pan American Health Organization supporting us with respect to health efforts. The World Food Program has also been actively engaged as co-chairs of the Emergency Logistics and Relief Management Group. And the World Food Programme is also supporting the consolidation of demands and available supplies through the use of the CARICOM logistics system in collaboration with the CDEMA team, and have also established a control tower for upstream and downstream logistics. I'd mentioned previously the activation of their arrangement for the provision of food supplies, and we really want to thank the World Food Programme with respect to those efforts. Other UN organizations have pledged their support, and I want to express my thanks to the UN Resident Coordinator based here in Barbados, who has provided very sterling support with the co-chairing of the Caribbean Development Partner Group, Mr. Simon Springett, as well as the full UN family, who have pledged a number of items, and we anticipate activating those in days to come. Global Support and Development, an international NGO, you would recall that we signed an MOU last year, which allows us to work collaboratively with the MV Dawn, which is a humanitarian vessel. That vessel has been activated, providing logistic support and the movement of relief supplies as well. World Central Kitchen has also reached out and responded to our call for assistance, and they're currently on the ground in St. Vincent and the Grenadines providing feeding services. The regional security system I'd mentioned previously, but I wanted to emphasize here that they also coordinate the CARICOM Disaster Relief Unit and have coordinated the security search support to our states. I want to acknowledge, of course, the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, who are providing financial support to the mobilization of the regional response mechanism, and they have done so for the past several years, and we continue to be appreciative of those efforts. And of course, UWI Television, we have a strong partnership with UWI, and they're here facilitating our broadcast today. So I wish to turn now to modalities for providing assistance to the impacted states. I know that as Caribbean people, we are close to our Caribbean brothers and sisters, and we want to assist. It is important that we do so in a highly coordinated way so that we are as efficient as possible and bring in really the best of the region to support our neighbors at a very difficult time. So with respect to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have received guidance from the government for an express preference for cash donations. Cash donations, I want to emphasize this. The account details are available to you, and I believe we will be showing those on screen sometime during the press conference, but we will also make these available via the CDEMA social media sites as well as our website, and distribute through the islands, through the channels of our National Emergency Management Coordinators. So just repeating, for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the government has expressed a preference for cash donations. They are mindful that there are items that are currently on the way, and of course these will be accepted, and we understand that any of those donations that are on the way would have been in alignment with any needs lists that had been previously prepared and circulated, and also would have been notified to the National Emergency Operations Center so that we can ensure coordination. But remember, preferred cash donations for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. With respect to the government of Grenada, they have advised that they will accept cash contributions, and they will be publishing the bank account information where these cash donations can be placed as soon as we have that information available at the coordinating unit. Similarly, we will be publishing it on our social media sites and also on our websites, and distributing through our participating states via our National Emergency Management Coordinators as well. In addition, The government of Grenada has advised that a needs list has been published. We understand it was published this morning, and that the government will be accepting contributions based on items in the needs list only. And I wish to emphasize this. It is very important that if you are providing support to the government of Grenada, it must be with respect to items that appear on the needs list. Now, across the CDEMA participating states, as you know, we work as a system. So our national emergency management coordinators in each of the CDEMA participating states will be the focal points for facilitation and coordination of any relief items which are to be sent for the government of Grenada. So you must liaise with them. Remember that we have logistical arrangements in place to support, which include our private sector partners of Tropical Shipping and King Ocean, which is another shipping facilitation within the region. But to access these arrangements, you must coordinate with the National Emergency Management Offices, and this allows us to keep a very clear perspective on what relief items will be coming from any of the CDEMA participating states, and also the facilitation of the logistics. And I want to repeat again, only items on the needs list will be accepted, and only items on the needs list will be shipped. So please bear this in mind. Thank you for your attention. This brings me to the end of the briefing. I am available to take your questions. And so back over to you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Edie, for that comprehensive update as it relates to the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada and the other islands who've been impacted by Hurricane BERYL. At this time, we are going to open the floor to the media across the region. All we ask is that you state your name and agency before you ask your question so that we can directly speak to you. I do see a Ryan Davis. Ryan, you can start with your question.
Hey, Ryan Hamilton Davis, Trinidad Newsday. Can you hear me?
You're a little muffled, but we can hear you.
You hear me now?
We're hearing you. Go ahead with the question, and we'll see if we can make out what you're saying.
Yeah, first question is, is CDEMA able to confirm the death toll? So far, we've been hearing different reports concerning deaths between 6 and 8. So I want to get a confirmed number for that. And secondly, as far as disaster preparedness is concerned, especially in areas like Haiti, which already has significant social problems and so on, how are the preparedness efforts being conducted there?
Yeah. So thanks very much, Ryan. So I understood the first question as being one as to whether we can give a confirmation with respect to fatalities. The answer is no. We have not received an official report from any of the states with respect to this item. And of course, once this is available, we would make this available to the press as well. Now, your second question was a bit muffled. I understood you were asking about preparedness actions, but could you repeat for me?
Or if you can't repeat, Ryan, can you just place it? If you may, you can place it. You can place a text in the Zoom, and we'll try to get the question answered.
Very good. I'll send it via text.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I see Jay. You can go ahead with your question. Just indicate your name and agency. Jay.
Hi, good morning, Keith. Good morning, Ms. Riley. I have one question. Speaking specifically...
Which agency are you with? Which agency are you
sorry,
with?
Jeremy Abel here, SKN Vibes, WinFM. Quick question though. In terms of medical facilities and so forth, where are we with that in terms of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Because from my recollection, they were stating that the hospital or so forth was actually damaged. Can you address that specifically? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. At this time, we have not had any requests from either of the states for surge support on the medical side. Please bear in mind that even though there were impacts to Grenada as well as to St. Vincent, that both of these islands are still operational. The capitals are very much operational, so the hospitals, medical arrangements on the main islands are still intact. We do know that there were medical personnel deployed from Grenada into the impact zone of Carriacou and Petit Martinique yesterday morning. But at this time, we have no specific requests for augmentation of the national level medical capabilities.
Thank you, Jay, for your question. Dennis Chabral from Guyana, please go ahead with your
Yes.
question.
Good day, Dennis Shabral, Caribbean News Desk and Demerara Waves. Can you say what preparations are currently being made at this moment to respond to the situations in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands? And secondly, why, after so many decades of preparedness, CDEMA and its previous organization have not found a way to ensure that there are adequate, secure telecommunications facilities to deal with situations like these? Here it is in 2024, we're seeing islands cut off from the rest of the Caribbean and the world because telecommunication systems have gone down. Why haven't you tried to fix this so immediately after the storm passes, you've got facilities that can be erected and communication started?
Thank you very much, Dennis, for your question. So with respect to the preparedness actions for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, so we have activated our regional response mechanism, and it is on standby to support Jamaica. We were in discussions with Jamaica on the operational scenario that they were anticipating, including looking at matters of potential population to be affected, etc. So the arrangements are on standby, including the CARICOM Disaster Relief Unit that's there. We are also looking at having appropriate surge support available for them as well. One of the things I want to draw the media's attention to is that this is quite a complex operation that is happening in the region. Many of you may be aware that we have 4 geographical subregions within CDEMA, which allow us to provide more effective response to our states. And you probably will realize that BERYL has in fact threatened 3 of those subregions, the one led by Barbados. In fact, all of the countries within the Barbados subregion were actually under threat at the same time, and those include Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And within the southern subregion, which is coordinated by Trinidad and Tobago, the subregional focal point itself was under threat, as well as Grenada. And we knew that BERYL was going to traverse the Caribbean Sea and provide a bit of a concern for Jamaica, which is the sub-regional focal point in the northwest. And of course, Jamaica is very important within our system because of the significant assets that they hold, etc. So I'm raising this point to say that what we have done is try to strategically utilize those states which have not been under threat to provide the horizontal cooperation support, and we've collaborated very closely with our partners. I'd explained a bit earlier how we're working very closely with the UN agencies to support the efforts, as well as some private sector entities and NGOs. Bahamas has also placed teams on standby for support to Jamaica as well, and they are in the northwestern subregion. And we do have an arrangement with the international militaries that support our regional response mechanism through our multinational Caribbean cell, and that includes the militaries of the United States, Canada, France, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and Canada. So they're also very much on standby and prepared to support. With respect to the Cayman Islands, The Cayman Islands is a UK overseas dependent territory, and in that regard, our operational plans call for us to activate our arrangements with the UK for support to the UK overseas territories in events where the regional resources are stretched. And this is certainly one of those scenarios. So we have confirmed with the UK that they're well positioned to activate their arrangements in support of the Cayman Islands should this be required. So you asked a question with respect to the adequacy of communication. So we do have communication surge arrangements in the region. I think it's also important to recognize that in multi-island states, there is a requirement for creation of redundancy around a lot of the facilities across every single island. So, for example, in a mainland, the type of resources that you would have on the mainland compared sometimes to what is held on sister islands or those smaller jurisdictions, I think it would be appreciated that that is not always equated. So we do have satellite phones that are located on Carriacou as well as Petit Martinique. So once the system had cleared, they were able to make contact. It is not unusual, and particularly during the impact of a major hurricane. And remember that when BERYL passed through, it was a major Category 4 system when it passed through the Grenadine Islands. So catastrophic destruction is associated with hurricanes of that particular strength. And so it's not unusual to see the normal communications going down, and usually we're able to use the satellite phones afterwards once we have some clearance with respect to the cloud cover, and that did take place. So the CARICOM Emergency Telecommunications Support Team, as I mentioned, was also deployed to both of the territories, and we are setting up the emergency communications on those islands. So we are able to get telephone contact with those islands through the satellite phones which were already there, but what we are now putting in place, because the usual communication service providers understandably have gone down, and they're of course working to rectify that situation, but what we're working to do now is to boost the range of the communication connectivity on each of those islands. So the Starlinks, for example, will allow us to get sustained internet connectivity so that we can send information back and forth via email and WhatsApp also to receive information now related to the relief management. So I hope that assists a bit.
Thank you very much, Edie. We move to Berthany McDermott. Please go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Berthany McDermott from R News Bahamas. You mentioned that an initial assessment was done in terms of flying over some of the islands affected by Hurricane Beryl. While I know it is still early in the assessment, I guess from your experience dealing with natural disasters, are you able to give an estimate as to the level of damage or in the affected islands?
Okay, thank you for your question. So I did give some initial figures when I reviewed the islands, and those initial figures were sourced from the aerial assessment that we did yesterday that was facilitated by the Regional Security System. Of course, now the next step is to get the assessment teams on the ground. I mentioned they're already in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we are working to get them on the ground also in Grenada to support the assessments there. Beyond those initial figures, which I shared, I'm not in a position to give a further details at this time.
Thank you, Edie. Ian Wason.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ian.
Morning, Jesse Ramdale from CNC3 News. Just wanted to quickly ask, firstly, thank you so much for the very comprehensive update. To you, ma'am, just wanted to find out, are plans being crafted at the moment, parallel, of course, to what is being done for affected regions, in light of the forecast weather systems that pose a threat to the territories which have already been decimated by Hurricane Beryl? We know that weather systems are looming behind. So I guess I'm really asking, is CDEMA looking ahead of what is to come and factoring that in its response?
Absolutely, and you've raised such an important point. In fact, just yesterday, we were in conversations with the officials in both St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada on this matter. I know you would have recognized from the briefing that we have significant numbers in terms of the exposed population. And this is something that we've been discussing. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as I mentioned, for Union Island, the Honorable Prime Minister had indicated that a facility was being made to allow persons to leave that island should they desire to do so. But I think we also recognize that in many instances, there are persons who may not desire to leave the space that they're connected to. So I think these are really difficult questions that the governments are now grappling with. We are having discussions around the provision of temporary shelter, but of course, it is of a major concern that we've had such catastrophic destruction to buildings, housing, and general shelter options in countries in what we know is a very active hurricane season. And I think the fact that we have had Beryl occurring so early in the season and reaching a Category 5 strength. Now, this is not a usual thing that we see with respect to the system. So we are very mindful of this, and we will continue to be in dialogue with the governments of the impacted states to work out the best solutions to ensure that the population is kept safe.
Thank you, Ian. I think we have that information, a graphic of the bank information for St. Vincent and the Grenadines that I believe we can place on the screen at this moment if persons want to. Yes. So we just want that persons who are interested and desiring to make any donations to the St. Vincent and the Grenadines government, you can use that information there to make those donations. I don't see any other members of the press anymore.
Could I ask a question, please?
Hi,
Peter
morning,
Richards.
Peter. Please go ahead with your question. You're with CMC.
Peter Richards, CMC. You said earlier on you do not have official figures as it regards to the death toll following the passage of the hurricane. Some international media organizations are reporting as much as 6 people died in Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Grenada, when I say Grenada, I mean Carriacou and its dependencies. How soon do you expect to get some official confirmation as to how many people would have passed as a result? And could you give a figure, or has any figure been given as to the estimate in terms of the devastation?
Okay, so with respect to timing of indication of fatalities, I cannot give an indication. What I can say to you is that we have received, for example, initial situation reports from Grenada. They've submitted information to us. We know that they're in the process of preparing another situation report. But please also be mindful that in many of these islands, access is only by boat, and we would appreciate that the seas have been very rough. So the officials in the islands have had to wait for the seas to calm, and then they're able to go over to see what is happening in those jurisdictions where the access is only by boat. They would have gotten yesterday. They're assessing the information and they do need to compile it. So we do have to give them an opportunity to do so. I really can't comment on what the international media is reporting, but we take our information from the national authoritative source, which is the Emergency Operations Center. And once that's available, we will make it available to you as well. What was the second question? The second question you asked was related to the estimated figures with respect to damage, and I covered that as comprehensively as I could based on the initial information available from the aerial reconnaissance and the initial assessments by the national officials as they visited on the ground yesterday. So once the damage assessors get out into the field, and remember we are dealing also with quite complex logistics here, so the usual connectivity between these islands, remember this has been disrupted. So there would be boats that would have been traditionally plied the routes and connected the islands. They may have been damaged, and whilst we work towards getting a more predictable bridging arrangement in place to connect via sea, and we're also trying to work on a connection via air as well. There is going to be very sort of sporadic logistics in terms of the connectivity between the islands. Of course, they're using the Coast Guard vessels that are available to facilitate movements, but there will be a lot of pressure on those Coast Guard vessels because there's requirements for movement of personnel to support as well as relief items which are required.
Okay, it's Hallam Hope here if I can get in.
Hey, Hallam, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Hallam Hope here with the Nation newspaper. But maybe to press you a little bit based on your experience of these hurricanes and what's not. Can you say in any way, any sort of estimate of currently we're looking at billions of dollars of damage. Can you say from your experience any estimate of what you perceive to be how many billions of dollars of damage could be done? We're looking at, for example, the Grenadines as well, both the Grenadines, the Grenadines and Grenada.
Thanks for the question, Hallam. So I know you'll appreciate that, every emergency is very different and impact different jurisdictions as well. So it is difficult to use figures of damage and loss from a previous event and apply it to the current event. So I say that to say that we will have those figures only when the damage assessors have finished their initial assessments, and even in the short term, those will just be estimates. And of course, I anticipate that the governments will also be making decisions as to whether they would move forward with undertaking post-disaster needs assessments, but those decisions lie within the purview of the governments, and the timing of the undertaking of the post-disaster needs assessments is usually within 6 to 8 weeks following the event, and that is really when you get a more detailed and accurate documentation of not only the damage and losses, but also estimates with respect to costs for recovery.
So, given that we heard from both governments that they are seeking cash, the focus is on cash donations. To what extent would you say, or would you want to appeal to the global community for grant funding, assistance to these countries? Maybe we've seen Caracou virtually flattened. So that's one question. The other, of course, is would you agree and describe the impact of the system as having a catastrophic disruption in terms of the Grenadines? Would that be a fair comment from you?
The governments with respect to the preferred modes for support at this time. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has expressed a preference for cash. That has been very clear. They've also indicated that they're, of course, welcoming any relief that is already underway, but right now there's a preference for cash donations. And I think you will appreciate that commerce is still operational in mainland St. Vincent and on Grenada. St. George's, Kingstown, things are operating, stores are open, you're able to purchase items. So one of the important considerations in any emergency is how do we ensure that we keep the economy of that country going in notwithstanding the situation. So one of the first things we want to ascertain is, can we do purchasing in country? And if the answer is yes, we move to cash contributions because we want to keep that economy going. And I think the reason for that would be understood by all. With respect to the government of Grenada, I just want to emphasize so that we have clarity on the message. The government of Grenada will accept cash contributions through a published bank account, and additionally, a needs list has been published, and the government will accept contributions based on items on that list. So I just want us to walk away with a common understanding of that. So with respect to the question that you raised then about what I understand you to be asking me about matters of the financing of the recovery. So this is really a matter, recovery is a matter that really sits within the purview of the countries themselves, and there will be arrangements from various entities in terms of what could potentially be on offer. I am aware that some of our regional partners, for example, the Caribbean Development Bank, has already indicated to us that they've started their reach outs to the governments of the states to have discussions around what type of facilities would be available to support, and I anticipate that they will be having similar discussions with other international financing organizations as well.
So my question is, would you say, I mean, I've heard the media talk about devastation and all that sort of thing, but would you say that from your perspective that the hurricane has had a devastating and catastrophic effect on these Grenadine Islands? Would that be correct to say so? You're saying such?
I would say, yeah, Hallam, I do apologize. I did miss that last part of your question. So the word catastrophic impact cannot be used as a broad brush. I think you have to look individually at the specific islands and the damage that was sustained at the level of the individual Grenadine islands. So with respect to Carriacou and Petit Martinique, that descriptor could be given based on what we saw when we flew over. Also, it could be applied to Union Island. Certainly for the St. Vincent Grenadines, from the flyover, it was clear that Union was the worst damage of all of the Grenadine Islands, but then you had very extensive impacts on Meru and Canouan as well. And as I didn't describe, you realize that there was then to a lesser extent, damage on Mustique as well as Grenadine Islands like Bequia. So I think it's very important in the media's reporting of the event that we really disaggregate the Grenadine Islands and ensure that in the reporting that we're very accurate with respect to which of the Grenadine Islands has sustained what type of damage. And I think this will be very important also for general communication in supporting the governments in the message that they are going to be bringing out around the damage as well.
Thank you very much.
My final question has to do,
Okay.
I have one last question, if possible.
Go ahead, Hallam.
Yeah. You would have mentioned that the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines had indicated it is keen or is prepared for evacuation. I heard that general statement about evacuation of people. Can you at this stage give any sort of details on that? Like, where would people be evacuated and how would they be evacuated? Any details on that? Thanks. My final question.
Okay, so I don't know if we would apply a blanket term of evacuation, and I was I was trying to be careful in my phrasing, because what was indicated by the Prime Minister is that provision is being made for persons who have a preference to leave Union Island to do so. And a fast ferry was made available when we flew over yesterday. In fact, the fast ferry was in port, and I did see persons lined up along the jetty, and I can only imagine, I can't say definitively, that they were about to board to leave. So there's been no conversation around mass evacuation of the islands at this time. There has been provision by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to allow persons from Union Island who may wish to do so to move over to mainland St. Vincent. So I want to make sure that that language and messaging is very clear, because we want to ensure to be consistent with the indications of the Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, Hallam, for
Hi,
your question.
good morning. Jassy Gonzalez, Trinidad Express newspaper.
Go ahead.
We wanted to know, has there been any lessons learned following Ivan in 2004 that are being applied to the Caribbean's response to this latest disaster?
I would say absolutely. You know, Ivan was one of the experiences that we had, which really taught us as a regional system that we had to plan more robustly for multi-country impacts in the Caribbean. And in fact, many things were born out of Ivan, including the expansion of the capabilities of our response teams. For example, the CARICOM Disaster Relief Unit, we had a full relook at that and deepened the capability. We have also invested in additional training of human resources across our states to support operations within emergency operations centers, damage assessment. We've also learned the importance of really working with partners, for example, the Caribbean Association of Fire Chiefs, who now play a very strong leading role in the coordination of any matters related to search and rescue. And you probably are also aware that the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, which is now the CRIF SPC, was born out of the Ivan experience. So there have been many lessons that have been learned, and we've sought to integrate them into the way that we are facilitating the responses for our states. I think the question of resilience, though, really continues to be at the forefront. And the real vulnerability of our region as it relates to climate change, you know, this is really coming to the fore. You would realize that this year we have had the warmest ocean temperatures on record. And these are things that we have to pay attention to, because what has happened with BERYL in terms of the rapid intensification and the destructive path that has resulted from that, these are things that are going to become much more common in not only our Caribbean space, but in other spaces as well. And we have to remember that climate change is not only affecting the severity and intensity of the cyclones, but on the broader hydrometeorological side, we are seeing things like excess heat. You know, and it's very unusual for us in the Caribbean to have heat warnings, but this is happening now. And in fact, we have indications from the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology that we will be experiencing even more extreme heat later on this year. Similarly, we have situations of more frequent and intense droughts. And in fact, some of the territories had been experiencing extensive drought prior to the impact of BERYL. And what this does is to set up the antecedent conditions which really make the potential for landslides even higher. So all of these are matters that we have to look at. we have to emphasize the points of building resilience across our states and building resilience at the sectoral and the community level is absolutely critical. And we often like to say that even in the midst of the destruction of events, we have opportunities. And the opportunity is certainly here to push for resilient recovery. We are looking to, the governments of these territories are seeking now to rebuild much of the infrastructure on these islands, you know, in situations where you have airports or hospitals, which are rendered now in a situation where they cannot be used, and we have to potentially rebuild. There is an opportunity now to look at matters of design criteria so that we recognize we are looking at situations where catastrophic Category 5 systems are potentially going to come through the region with greater frequency. So this is the kind of criteria that we're using now to do our building, and also taking into account the fact that we have very multiple hazards that affect our region. So you need to look at things like earthquake, like flood. So we can put that multi-hazard lens on the design criteria for how we undertake the recovery. So this is going to be a very important part of the recovery process.
Is the CDEMA informing CARICOM that we need to build that resilience now, or continue building that resilience, because things are about to get worse? Is that what is going on?
Well, CDEMA is CARICOM. We are part of the CARICOM family. We are the arm that deals with matters related to disaster risk management. We do a lot of work under our programming with our states. In fact, we have just completed work in collaboration with the Caribbean Development Bank, OECS, and the CARICOM organization, CARICOM Regional Organizations for Standards and Quality, CROSSQ, on revising a code of practice for strengthening small residential construction. And this code allows for cost-effective construction of homes which are resilient to Category 5 hurricane winds, as well as earthquakes, Richter 7 on the Richter scale. So even though of course, you may see and speak to CDEMA a lot around events, behind the scenes, as a regular part of our resilience building, this is what we do. And we are promoting these products. We're working with CANTA, the Regional Association for Training. We've integrated the Code of Practice into the CVQs, the CARICOM Vocational Qualifications, and it is now being integrated into the training regimes of post-secondary institutions across the region. So these are things that are ongoing and will continue to be a part of CDEMA's work. And of course, we have a voice, and we use that voice to advocate at the political level for the uptake of this type of work at a more rapid pace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. Edie, we have one question from Ryan Davis, the very first question. He says, in terms of disaster preparedness, especially in places like Haiti with significant social issues prior to Hurricane Beryl, how are preparedness plans working there?
Okay, so the Haiti situation is a complex one because, you know, the effective approaches and even arrangements for support to Haiti are complicated by issues around conflict. And I think members of the media are well aware of the situation which has evolved in Haiti and continues to evolve. Of course, this is a matter that CDEMA is very much keeping its eye on, because we know that humanitarian action, for it to take place effectively, it has to take place in safe spaces. What I can tell you is that the efforts of our colleagues at the Civil Protection Department in Haiti have been constrained by the realities of the conflict situation. So usual preparedness actions such as going out into the communities and ensuring that the public awareness programs are happening in that effective way where you're free to move around and interact with the communities. I think we're all very aware that this is not the current situation in Haiti. So the office there continues to do its work, but in a very constraining environment. So if you ask me if they are operating in the way they normally do with respect to preparedness actions, the answer is no. But what I can say is that they're doing the best that they can in the circumstances.
Thank you very much, Edie. Any more? I don't see any more raised hands.
There is a raised hand.
Hello?
Yes, I.
Good morning, I have a
Yes.
question.
Please go ahead with your question.
Okay, so quickly, Miss Riley, just wanted to find out from you as the executive director of CDEMA, are you satisfied with the regional response so far, and is there anything that you would like to perhaps see improved or worked on?
Well, I have to start by putting the response into context, and I will just revert to what I mentioned a little bit earlier. So we had a situation where 3 of our subregions were under threat, and multiple jurisdictions in those 3 subregions. We've now had significant impacts of 2 of those subregions, with BERYL currently impacting our subregional focal point in Jamaica. So in terms of satisfaction, I would say that we have done the best that we could do in a constraining situation. What I am very happy about is that as the system has passed and as the critical states which were under threat are no longer under threat, and they've indicated that the level of impact is going to require a response, which is a level 1, which is basically a local level response. What we have seen is that the states have been recommitting to executing their functions as sub-regional focal points. And this has certainly been the case with Trinidad and Tobago. So for example, we're going to be deploying personnel out of Trinidad and Tobago to support the CARICOM disaster relief unit, similarly now out of Barbados. So what we have to do in these situations is that we have to be agile. So I'm very pleased that the states that were not under threat at all, they did their best to make sure that we could put personnel on the ground, and we were able to provide responses within 24 hours of the all clear. And this is one of the aims that we have as a regional response mechanism. We were able to effect that. So I really want to thank the teams that have been working with us. I want to congratulate them. And I also want to acknowledge the staff of the coordinating unit, because we have been working nonstop now for several days, and the team has been doing a tremendous job. I want to also acknowledge the work of our partners, how they have jumped into the situation. We are coordinating well with them, and I really appreciate that level of commitment of the partners. The UN has been tremendous in really demonstrating that commitment to the regional arrangements that we have here in the Caribbean and making them work. Our entities on the security side, we had done some prior planning, of course, as we always do, because as you know, these situations, we have to anticipate potential deterioration of law and order. We've been able to get the additional security personnel on the ground. They're arriving this morning to augment national level security. So, and we have had no breakdowns of law and order that have been reported to me thus far. And as such, I'm quite satisfied with how things are going. The first of the relief efforts have already started reaching the ground. You know the logistical constraints that I've explained, but we are working through those. The relief is reaching persons, but initially it's going to be slow because we are dealing with just managing the logistics and making sure that so far. They are satisfied so far with the support that we've been able to give and how we are reinforcing that support as the days go by.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Riley. Members of the media, I want to thank you so much for your patience.
I
I
have
know
a
over the last
question.
few days. Is there a question there from
Yes.
Dennis? Do you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to get it clear. I know it's early days yet for the hurricane season. Really and truly, in light of what is happening in Haiti, is CDEMA prepared to coordinate with authorities in Haiti to respond to the disaster? And secondly, if you'll permit, Ms. Riley, I know you have your official mechanisms in place that you have to abide by your procedures, but in future, we like to see at least some preliminary information coming out from CDEMA, so at least we get a fairly early, accurate picture of what is happening rather than waiting 2 to 3 days after.
Okay, so, well, let me address that one directly. So, one of the things that we have to recognize is that even though the system was moving quickly, it was quite a big system. And we have to allow the system to clear the area. It's very important because one of the first rules with respect to humanitarian assistance is that you need to ensure the safety of those persons delivering the humanitarian assistance. We also had a situation where the Grenadine Islands, we have to look at the logistics and access to those islands. So some of them have airstrips. Some of them, the airstrips are very short. So this means that certain size aircraft cannot land there. It is restricted to very, very small aircraft. In addition, I'd mentioned that some of those islands you can only access by boat. You can only access by boat. What happens to the seas when you have a Category 4, any catastrophic level system coming through, is that you get significant disturbance of the seas. So you would note, for example, that the meteorological services would put out marine craft advisories, advising persons not to venture out to sea until the seas have actually calmed. And sometimes it can take 12 to 15 hours for seas to calm. So we provide the information to you as quickly as we can, but it is also important to recognize that we can only provide information to you that we're able to obtain, and we can only obtain that information if we're able to get into the spaces that have been impacted. So I fully appreciate the appetite of the media for getting the information as quickly as possible. And at CDEMA, we have that appetite too, because information powers the work of the regional response mechanism. It is how we make the decisions as to what individual countries may or may not require and the timing with which that takes place. So the desire for timely information, it is absolutely all around. We do have to recognize the particular scenario that we are working with here, and we are working to make sure we can get the information to you as quickly as possible. We'd had a discussion yesterday because the national authorities were just getting to go in yesterday. We were not going to get information back until late yesterday evening when they returned, which we did. And of course, we scheduled, with the support of our comms specialists here, a media briefing as soon as we could afterwards, which is why we scheduled it for this morning, so you could get that information immediately. It was coming in all last night up to very late hours. So I hope we can continue to work collaboratively with a full understanding of the context within which these operations are taking place.
Thank you very much, Ms. Riley. You picked the words right out of my mouth that I would have said to Dennis. We want to be able to always give you accurate information.
The Haiti question was not answered.
Pardon me?
The question on Haiti and whether the situation in Haiti is prohibiting CDEMA from coordinating in a big way should disaster strike there, given the fact the storm season is way down into November.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I apologize that I didn't circle back to that question. The reality is yes. As I said, anytime we are launching a humanitarian response, the first concern is safety. Haiti has a real conflict situation which is being managed. So at this time, we would have to really have very deep conversations with our colleagues in Haiti to understand the situation on the ground, and we would need to be able to guarantee the safety of personnel who could be deployed into Haiti. And I think we have to accept that the situation there is difficult. We understand that the leadership that is currently in place is doing its best to bring some level of, I don't know if to say normalcy or right sizing, what might be the best word to use there, but they're trying to address a difficult situation. And anytime you have concerns related to law and order and safety of humanitarian workers, there is going to be a constraint. This is just a reality. But what I would say is that to the extent possible, if something should happen in Haiti, we would do our best. But at the forefront always is that we have to ensure the safety. We have to ensure the safety of the humanitarian workers.
Any further questions, Dennis?
No, thank you. That's okay.
Thank you very much, everybody, members of the media across the region. Thank you for your questions and thank you for being so patient. As indicated by our executive director, as information increases, as we get more information, we'll be able to keep you updated. We do have a WhatsApp group with members of the media from across the region, and we're able to keep you updated. The information right now at this stage is still slim, but we certainly will keep you informed as to when we have more information to share with the members of the media and the public. I want to thank Ms. BERYL for being so accessible and making herself available to update the region. And I just want to remind you of the information regarding the needs list in Grenada. We're sticking to that needs list, as well as if you want to provide any funding for the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you can do so by accessing the information regarding the bank information that we will share on our social media pages. I want to thank you very much for being here this morning with us, sharing the information, and we will continue to keep you updated across the region as things progress. Have a good day.